Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Meyerson, and I am prepared to nerd out big time tonight. If you are curious like me and things paranormal interest you, then you're going to really want to lean in for this conversation I'm going to have tonight with Rebecca Williamson. Rebecca is the owner of Cambre House and Farm, which is a haunted wedding venue outside of Nauvoo, Illinois. I'm making sure I pronounce these correctly. She's been interested in the paranormal her entire life and has nearly 20 years of experience doing paranormal investigations. She bought the house from her grandparents' estate in 2016 and hosts weddings and paranormal investigations there. Rebecca also started doing aura readings in 2019 when she discovered she could see auras. Since then, she's done a lot of research on auras and has refined her gift by not only seeing the auric colors, but interpreting the colors for each person. Oh my gosh, there's so many juicy bits to that information in that intro. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So right off the top of the bat, people are leaning in. They're hearing you purchased this farm. It's been in your family. It has a really rich history. And I do encourage people, if you're into this, go check out the website. There's a lot of history and information and some beautiful pictures of the spot, which happens to be on the Mississippi River. I have personally never been to the Mississippi River, but I'm feeling like maybe there's a little Airbnb action in my future.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me about, number one, how did you get interested in the paranormal? And was that interest there before or after you knew about the farm?
So I've always loved ghosts and ghost stories, just the whole ghost story thing, and then like fairy tales and legends and lore. That as a kid, I totally geeked out on all that stuff. And so like I read like every single ghost story I could find, and just those ghost story collections. I read all of those. So totally into that. And then when I had my 30th birthday, one of my girlfriends bought me tickets for a ghost tour. And I went on the ghost tour with all my girlfriends for my birthday, and because they knew I kind of like that stuff. And I was hooked. I went back like the next night for the midnight graveyard tour, and I ended up making friends with the guy who owned the tour company, who did that, and we're still good friends. And he ended up like I was helping him scout locations for his ghost tours, and yeah, helping him with his tours. And so, yeah, that was in 2003 around 2000 is when that started. And then, yeah, absolutely love ghosts.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So when your grandparents purchased the farm, did they purchase it with the knowledge that it was haunted?
No. And my grandparents never talked about this place being haunted. However, when I think about the stuff that happened out here, you know, after they bought it, it was like really obvious that they were having activity. We just never called it that. It's, you know, it's an old house, and, you know,
creaky floors.
Yeah, the floors creak sometimes. And yeah, that door opens and closes by itself, but it's an old house. This just happens. Looking at these things now, like from a paranormal investigator standpoint, you know, I know that door that we have had problems with since the day they bought the house, it closes, it latches, and it's a solid shut. I mean, when you pull on that door, it does not open. So even if it was a draft, you know, I mean, yeah, it is an old house, but I mean, even if it was a draft, I can be out here on the windiest day and it won't open from the wind. It's not the wind opening that door. It's something else. So,
yeah. So who's opening that door? Do you know who it is?
I'm pretty sure I have a good idea now. I mean,
yeah.
And that's kind of the fun thing, is like going back at like some of these things that have happened forever, looking at them from a paranormal investigator standpoint, and then coming to the conclusion of where that activity is coming from and who might be causing that activity. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So how do you go about doing the research on that to figure out like who could it be? What could it be? What could be causing the activity that's happening in the house? How do you figure all that out?
One of the cool things about the farm here is that my grandparents did a ton of research into the history of the home to get it on the National Register of Historic Places. There's a process that you have to go through to be added to the National Register, and one of them is, doing all the history. So when I bought the house, I got like a 3-ring binder about 3 inches thick, full of the history of the home. And the neat thing here is that the Cambre family bought the property here in 1860 and built the home here in 1867 is when they finished the house that stands today. And then the 4 generations of Cambres lived here until 1979 when my grandparents bought the farm. So I have kind of like an inside knowledge of, okay, well, who lived in this house? Well, it's the Cambre family. That's the only family that's really lived in this house because my grandparents never lived here. They bought this house with the intention of preserving the history here. So yeah, it's mainly the Cambre family. And so then you have to look at the genealogy of the Cambres, which I do have the genealogy of that, that was done. And like, well, who could possibly be haunting out here from the Cambre family? And it's like, well, so a few of the family members have died in the home, just natural causes. But the one that we think is most of the activity is Eglantine Cambre. It's kind of a strange name. But Eglantine actually died on the property before the home was finished being built. She died at the age of 9, and she is actually buried here in an unmarked grave. The family obviously knew where she was, but she didn't end up getting a marker. I don't know why. And somehow or another in time, the knowledge of exactly where she's buried at has been lost.
Oh boy.
But she is super active here in the house. And, we came to the conclusion that it's Eglantine because of doing the paranormal investigations. I mean, when we're investigating, we can ask, like basic yes, no questions and kind of get some responses with the equipment. Then the first investigation that we did, we had a cold spot that was, like crazy, crazy cold. The temperature in the house was like 58 degrees and this cold spot was registering 20 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So it was very, very significant cold spot. And it was short. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just like a little ball. It was like a solid, like 4 foot tall cold spot. And that cold spot was steady for like about 2 hours. It moved around here at the farm, but it was a solid cold spot that was about 4 foot tall. And so I was like, well, that kind of led us to believe that it was probably Eglantine.
Wow.
And then again, like getting the positive responses to the questions with the equipment, are you female and is your age, asking, questions about the age and stuff to just basically like narrow down and confirm. And we've had a lot of positive responses to confirm that it is Eglantine for most of the activity.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool and so interesting.
Yeah.
Like I love the science, and then also just the you've got to suspend a little bit of belief, right, to be able to say, okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So how did you go then from, you took on the farm and the estate, and how did you decide that it was going to be a space to do weddings?
Well, I bought the farm kind of just like my grandmother had passed away, and they were getting ready to get rid of the house, and I just didn't want to see it go. I
Mm.
wanted to keep it. So I bought it and then said, well, now what? And kind of looked back at what my grandparents had done out here, because they didn't live here either. We had like family gatherings, and they did craft shows. So in amongst all those family gatherings that we had, two of my cousins had gotten married out here. And it was kind of like, well, the logical step is, well, if we've had a couple weddings, then we can do more. So that was kind of the thinking. It was like, well, okay, well, we've done a few. We can do more, right? So so yeah, that was the idea. Was I'll just, okay, well, I'll tell people we're doing weddings out here, and they'll just show up.
And that happened.
Kind of. I mean, I'm well off the beaten path out here. Like, you're never going to find this place unless you are actually looking for it, and even then, you probably drive by it. So it's kind of a lot of marketing, a lot of making sure people know I'm out here and who I am and what I do, and then. And bought it and realized it was haunted. Like, we'd had some experiences with both footsteps and things. And then we actually did an investigation out here and realized we really had activity out here. And
Wow.
so then we started doing ghost tours too. So my ghost tour people get really excited and then come back and decide they want to have a wedding. So it kind of works well.
That's so cool. I mean, for some people, it's probably like the perfect combination of like a wedding and ghosts at the same time. So how frequently do you have people who are coming specifically for that purpose? They want to have their wedding and they want that paranormal piece to it.
About half and half. About half and half. Like, some of them are really into it. Like, that's the entire reason they looked me up, is because of the ghost, or they came for a ghost tour and then realized it was really pretty and they wanted to get married here. So I got a lot of that, and then I've got a lot, like, the couple's not into the ghost thing, but they like the pictures and they love the location. But then while they're out here, like, they'll have family that's really into it, and the family gets all excited. I've had like some of the groomsmen super, super excited that they get to spend the night out here and investigate, while the couple is just like, okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So that you have this one entity. Do you believe that there's more than one?
Oh yeah, for sure. Eglantine's like the most active one. I mean, she's like, when we get the equipment out, she is like into it, on it. I mean, but there's several of the other Cambre family members will interact occasionally, and my grandparents every once in a while will pop through. So
that's cool.
Yeah, that is really cool when we can have that interaction with them too. So it's exciting for me, knowing that they're kind of like watching over what I'm doing out here, and just keep an eye on things, and then too to ask the questions, like, do you like what I'm doing out here? And to get the yes positive response through the equipment is really exciting and very affirming.
Yeah, that's super cool. So I just have to tell people who are possibly listening, but as we're sitting here talking, every once in a while, your camera is doing a little like zoom in, zoom out. Like,
yeah, I am at the farm.
I love it.
I will say I am out here at the farm. A lot of times I record the podcast from my house, but today I am actually out here at the farm on the location. So
that is so cool. So we might have a little introduction to some of the spirits that are hanging out there. That's really cool.
Yeah, you might. It's possible.
So super cool. So I checked out your website. It's such a beautiful place on the river. So tell me about some of the events and things that you have there, because I saw you have like some paranormal events that are coming up, like almost like a vendor fair for people. That sounds so cool.
It is so much fun. So that's coming up on June 18th for the solstice. I called a paranormal fair, and what that is, it's like a vendor event. except all the vendors are usually paranormal teams or, kind of more like Halloween-y vendors, people who are interested in the ghost stuff. So, herbs and all kinds of, ghost sprays and.
Yeah, mystic nerds like me are like, I want to go to this one.
Yes, exactly. And then, like I said, there's a whole bunch of paranormal teams that'll be here. So you can ask like questions about investigations that they've been on, or, if you're having activity or something in your house and you want to discuss that, they're here to answer all those questions that you have.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And then afterwards, then we do a big investigation at the house that evening. With whoever wants to stay. So we end up with a bunch of different paranormal teams here, all investigating and having fun. So it's a good time.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like such a nerd fest in the best possible way. So when people are investigating, for people who maybe haven't had any introduction into what that might look like, what does that consist of, doing an investigation in a location?
Well, it kind of depends on the location. So if it's a location that hasn't been investigated before, the first thing you do is kind of like do a walkthrough, like see what spots have kind of the feel to them. If you're a more experienced investigator, you can usually there's a feel to a spot that has activity in it. So you start by walking through and kind of just checking it out and seeing which locations have the feel. But bring in your equipment then too to see, like if there's high EMF in spots, if there's a location that has a lot of EMF, you're going to have a lot of bias in that location. Like the high EMF is going to mess with your equipment, and it's also going to mess with your brain. A high EMF can cause hallucinations. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So yeah. You just kind of like check the EMF, check temperatures, that kind of stuff. That's the start. And then after that, is like I said, you've kind of identified some spots that you want to come back and hit. And then you'll have the equipment that you want to try out in there. And based on the location, like some of them, you're going to listen more for sound, or you're going to look for, like spirit box and trying to get responses and stuff. Like I said, it depends on what equipment you bring. Like everybody kind of has their own favorite equipment, that they like to bring along on an investigation. And, for some people that may be the spirit box. For some people that might be Ovilus, or there's so much equipment.
Yeah, so many different ways to go.
Yeah. Big rabbit hole you can go down with equipment and REM pods. And I don't know if you've seen any of the shows, but they've got cases and cases and cases of equipment. A cat ball is something that seems to be popping up a lot lately. And that's a little ball that has a motion activated light in it. So when it's moved, the light goes off. So it's designed for cats.
But it works for ghosts.
But it works for ghosts too. So that's kind of been a big thing lately, or cat balls. Then there's like a motion activated music box that people bring a lot out here. Eglantine seems to really enjoy the motion activated music box. So yeah, just whatever equipment you have.
Yeah.
And then, break it down, see what works, see what doesn't work. Go hither and yon, move to different spots around. And,
yeah. So it sounds like for you've sort of got this like connection and sense of the spirit worlds, ghosts, and you have this sense of reading people. So it's sort of like you have these capabilities, if I could say, like reading people currently living and no longer living. Is that how you kind of experience it?
I would say yes, because like for me, I can definitely feel when there's activity in the location. There's like a a vibe when there's activity there. You know, I can definitely tell like more activity or less activity. You know, there's a feel to it. I guess it's kind of hard to describe, but I don't necessarily like hear voices or see things or anything like that, but I can definitely like get like a sense of a feeling of the location. Sometimes I can pick up on feelings like, you know, sad, happy, that type of thing in a location. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you ever been in a location that you felt unsafe in some way?
Um, yes and no. I mean, not like I not like unsafe, but like maybe I'm not supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely got the feeling I'm not supposed to be there. Like kind of like a pushback of no, you shouldn't be here. And then I've always personally, whenever I've got that feeling, I've left. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I
yeah,
mean, from a totally different standpoint, I know house hunting. I've been in places that I walk in and I'm like, I gotta go. This is not gonna work for me. Like it
yeah,
just has a
right.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, see? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like sometimes it'll just be like the basement. Like I shouldn't be in the basement. And so then I will
Eek.
just leave the basement, you
Yeah.
know, and then once I get out of that spot, then everything's fine. And then it's like sometimes too, like even like later on in the investigation, when I'll come back to that spot, that feeling will have moved on. It won't be as
Mm.
heavy or dark, and then I can go back in there. So, you know, the spirit will have moved elsewhere or whatever was going on there on the other side is better now. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
it makes me think of like I live in New Jersey and we have this magazine called Weird New Jersey. Have you ever heard of this? I don't know if it's like if it's something that other people in other states have heard of.
It sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm not super familiar with it. It sounds familiar, but I don't know
Yeah.
it.
So it's sort of like a like creepy places and like, sightings of things like UFOs, Bigfoot, like that kind of a vibe
Oh,
and
fun.
and
Yeah.
the Jersey Devil, like things like that are, unique to New
Mm-hmm.
Jersey too. But,
Oh, fun.
they'll often do like a photo spread and information about like an abandoned hospital or psych hospital or a jail, and people will go in and talk about like the feelings and the angst that they feel going into that. So have
Mm-hmm.
you ever been in a situation like that where there's been a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, like disruption to spirits when they were alive?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've been to locations that are kind of like that. And like some of them, like we went to Missouri State Penitentiary last fall, which wasn't as heavy as I thought it was going to be. I mean, I was
Mm-hmm.
expecting it to be really heavy and really dark, and it wasn't. But you know, like the more I thought about it, you know, that was their home. That's where they lived.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not every day was a bad day. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, it wasn't the happiest place on earth, and there was definitely some negative stuff that we picked up while we were there, but for the most part, it was like a lot of the day to day, like, you know, day to day living and feeling and stuff. And it was, like I said, it was one of those things where I went into it thinking it was going to be like really heavy and dark and just all nasty and whatever. But when I actually got there, it wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
like that. And then, like I said, the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, oh, this is where they live. This was their home. So, yeah, it
So
was
it
kind
didn't
of
feel
interesting.
right. It didn't feel so dark and heavy to them.
No, no, no. And but then there's other places like where I went to this one where it was like an abandoned town, and that one, like they tried to make it into it was a resort. They didn't try; it was a resort. And then after the owner committed suicide, the whole place was just basically
Mm.
abandoned and kind of went to ruin over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But no one really goes out there now. And like that one, the, it just feels like you're not supposed to be there.
Mm.
And again, it just is very strong presence of this is their spot and you're not supposed to be there. And it just that I get a lot of that pushback of you need to leave. And that particular investigation, we went there at night and tried to investigate in this abandoned. And that was a really heavy you're not supposed to be here feeling. And even though I was really excited to be there to investigate, I did honor that, and we did leave just because it was just so strong, that feeling that we should leave.
Wow.
And I think too is like they're just not used to having people there. That's their spot. That's not our spot, you know? Whereas like something like Missouri State Penitentiary, where people are there all the time for tours and stuff like that. And like even like when it was an active prison, there were people in and out of there so often that they're used to that type of thing. Whereas this other location isn't.
Right.
That makes any sense to you?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm so fascinated by this because it's just like insider knowledge, you know, versus like speculation and what you see in like those TV shows. So much of it is, you know, dramatized for it to be like really good television versus what really occurs.
Yeah. People running around screaming, not typical.
No, not a typical.
Yeah, a lot of it is just sitting there and like waiting and hoping that something might happen. I mean, you have to think like a lot of those TV shows, they've been at that location for like an entire week and they edit it down to 30 minutes.
Right.
So during an entire week, you might get 30 minutes worth of activity that's really cool and exciting. But for the most, you were there a week to get that 30 minutes. So
Gotcha. Yeah, you've really made me think though how you're talking about honoring that feeling of you're not supposed to be here and not sort of pushing past that and like I'm going to say anyway because you're being respectful of you know their space.
And that's something that I always try to like when we're doing tours and stuff out here at the home. Like this was their home. These are people. This was their home. I mean, the Cambre family isn't my family, but my grandparents are. And you know, I want you to treat them with respect. I mean, we treat them with respect during the investigation, and I expect the people who come here to investigate to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's really special. I like that. I haven't ever heard that sort of approach. Not that I've spoken to a lot of people like directly about paranormal experiences, but it's all been very like, you know, sensationalized if you're watching the shows on TV.
Yeah. You know, if you had somebody coming in your house yelling and screaming at you to move something, you know, would you or would you just walk away?
Totally, right? No, you're so right. I love it.
No, but you know, if you sit there and you have like a real conversation, like, oh, hey, how are you? What are you doing? You know, that kind of stuff, or just that, you know, talking to them like they're real people.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think you get more interaction. And I mean, sometimes like the interaction isn't as exciting as, you know, on TV. You know, the equipment might be going off and stuff, but it's just not like, you know, a brick being thrown at you or something like that. But yeah, sometimes it's not as exciting, or sometimes it's more of a feeling than, you know, something that's obvious on camera.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I've experienced that feeling. I've done like in Cape May, New Jersey, they have haunted ghost tours, and I've done them. And, you know, like there was one spot where there was sort of an alleyway, and they said very often the entities who hang out there like to come like, you know, blow wind on you or something like that. And I immediately was like, oh, I feel like I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like awareness. There's more than just us here right now. Yeah. Yeah. So I love that you bring that human element to it.
Hmm.
And I wonder if in some ways that sort of takes down that scare factor for people.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I found that the people on the ghost tours, um, the ones that are usually there and are really into it, tend to get more scared than the people who aren't.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we'll have activity and everybody will see the activity. So, I mean, everybody's experiencing the same thing for the most part, but sometimes it seems like the people who are so much more into it get freaked out when something happens than the people who
Uh-huh.
are who are just there along for the ride and something happens and then they get excited and they want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny sometimes the way that works, but
Yeah. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit. Tell me more about the aura readings and how that came about for you.
oh, that's kind of interesting. So, I was doing like a psychic circle, like a meditation circle, and they said we're going to break into groups now and we're going to read each other. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm game to try about anything once, right? You mean,
Yeah.
right? Why not? And so they kind of went through like, like focus on them, see what color they are, and then, what does that color mean to you? And then tell them that. I'm like, okay, oh, it's all right. And I ended up getting stuck in a group with a bunch of professionals, and I did it, and they were just like, "Oh my gosh, that's so good! You're like spot on, spot on. You should be doing this for a living." And I'm like, "Really?" uh, but so then I was like, "Well, that was kind of neat. Let's see if I can replicate this. Can I do it again?" And so, like, practiced a lot of practice. And like a refining, a fine tuning of, what is this that I'm doing? It took me a little while to figure out that the colors that I was seeing when I did this were actually the auras. And somebody had suggested they were auras, and then I got a book about auras, and the colors that I was seeing in my interpretation was matched up with the aura book.
Oh,
So
cool.
that was the light bulb of, oh, maybe this really is the real thing here. um, yeah, so I kind of came at it from a weird way. And it's been a process of like refining this and trying to figure out exactly, what I'm doing, and getting a process, making a process up without anybody to tell you how to do it. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
weird, but interesting and fun. I've had fun with it just to kind of, I don't know, it's neat.
Yeah, it is really cool. Do you have like a way that you kind of work that into what you're doing at the farm?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I go to conventions a lot for the farm, and just kind of telling people about my ghosts and um, saying, "Hey, come out, do a ghost tour. It's a cool spot." So when I'm out doing that, then I'll do aura readings while I'm out there. So it kind of blends into the whole paranormal conference because there's a lot of readers and stuff there, and so yeah, that's kind of how I blend that in. Um, and then I just do readings too, like when I'm at home, and um, I feel better when I do more readings. So when I'm feeling off or funky or whatever, then I'll try to do more readings. So kind of helps my energy flow better when I'm doing it.
Oh, that's
So
really cool. Wow.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's sort of like a energy boost for you when you do it.
yeah, or a boost, but it just like it keeps my energy flowing smoothly. Like I think a lot of times like our energy just kind of becomes like blocked and stagnant and like sluggish. So if I'm working with my energy and my auric energy, my auric field, it keeps it moving and flowing and fresh.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's really, really
Yeah.
cool. So tell us about how people can see the farm, interact, different activities you have coming up.
Yeah, for sure. So, like my big paranormal fair is coming up on June 18th. Um, it's here at the farm. I'm 1 Cambre Lane, Nauvoo, Illinois. My road was part of a stagecoach route that ran through the farm. So get this really long lane. That's where I'm at. So my website is cambrehouse.com, and I'm pretty much Cambre House everywhere you go: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So.
So we can find TikToks of you.
Yes, there's some TikToks of me. My kid who's 13, she's kind of embarrassed I'm on the ticker talker. If I say it that way, I sound really old, and she thinks it's highly embarrassing. So I try to do that as the tickety talky or what.
Yeah, I think that's your right as a mom. Totally, your right as a mom to do that.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I've got some ghost investigation TikToks up there, and then like some of the stuff out here at the farm and so Instagram, and yeah, I'm around it at this point. If you type Cambre into search engine, I should pop up somewhere. So
totally. And we're going to hook everything up in the show notes, so if people want to follow you, and especially if you're local, people are local to where you are, to come to some of the events that you have coming up. I noticed you also have I think I saw some painting events that people can come to.
Yes, I do painting classes a couple times in the summer. My mother's an artist, and she kind of helped me like gear up a painting class, and so we kind of like go through like a Monet or a Van Gogh, kind of honoring my French heritage out here at the farm to kind of do the painting classes. So it's kind of fun.
Super cool. Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to encourage everybody to make sure you check out the website, follow her on the Ticker Talker, and of course on Instagram and Facebook. And I really hope, like me, Rebecca has kind of given you some food for thought in terms of spirit, how they behave, and really approaching with that human element and a lot of respect. And I'm so excited to have talked to you, because you've really piqued my interest. I'm sort of like, I need to find a ghost tour now and check out some of these things that you were talking about.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun with it. I mean, it's serious in a way, but it's fun and it's interesting, and ghost tours are the perfect history tour, because you learn all about all of the history of a location, not just the good stuff, but some of the bad stuff too. Some of the, not as, seeing polished images. When you go on a ghost tour, you get all of the history. So it's fun.
Yeah, I love that too. I think that sort of opportunity to experience the history in the location, learn about it. So the whole package is just, it really sounds so cool and fun.
It is. I like it.
So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to hook everything up in the show notes, and I wish you well, and have fun on the solstice with your paranormal event. That sounds like a blast.
For sure. And thank you so much for having me. I don't know why my camper doesn't want to focus today. I'm going to blame the ghost. So
yeah, I mean, we're giving everybody like an authentic experience. There is literally nothing you are personally doing that would make your camera do that. So we're just going to say it's Eglantine. Am I pronouncing her name correctly?
Yes. Yep. Eglantine. And entirely possible.
I can see like a 9-year-old girl, like, what happens if I do this? And what if I do it again? Or what if I do it again?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And everybody, stay curious and go check out the website. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.